Welcome back. I'm going to show you how to colour in Darkroom Door photo stamps using Marvy Le Plume pens, and it's a great fun technique for your card making. So let's get started. So what I'm using today is the Darkroom Door Surfboards photo stamp, and I'm going to stamp onto glossy cardstock. I'm going to use the Archival jet black ink. And now this jet black ink is a waterproof ink, so it's going to dry really well onto the glossy card. Now the reason I like using the glossy card for this technique is it shows up all the detail in the Darkroom Door photo stamps perfectly. So I'm just going to make sure that this stamp is inked really well. That's one of the most important things you've got to remember with the Darkroom Door photo stamps or the collage stamps, is that you need to have the entire stamp covered really well with ink. If you don't, you're not going to get all of the detail showing up in that stamp. So I've just inked up the stamp, and now I'm going to stamp it onto the glossy card. And you want to make sure that you've given it a firm pressure, just to make sure all the elements on the stamp have been connected with the cardstock. So just press down there and then lift that off, and then you have your stamped image. Now you can see how much detail is in that. Now with this glossy cardstock, even though this Archival ink is an oil-based ink and it dries really fast, I like to just give it a little burst with the heat gun, just to make sure that the image is completely dry. Okay, so now we have our dried image, and I'm just going to start using some Marvy Le Plume pens to colour it up. So I like starting with the light colours. With the Marvy Le Plumes, even though they are a water-based marker, they do dry really well on glossy cardstock. You just need to give them a little bit of time to dry, but they will dry very well on the glossy card. And there's no problem there with it rubbing off or anything after you've finished colouring your image. So I'm just colouring in these surfboards. I'm just using some lighter sort of colours here. Now the beauty of this next surfboard here, it's got a few stripes, so I'm just going to add in a bit of darker highlight here. You want to be careful with the darker colours. And this pink I'm using is not necessarily that dark, but it is compared to those first pastel colours. Because with the glossy cardstock, wherever you put that pen down, that's exactly where that colour will stay. So you do want to be careful if you want to stay in the lines. So I'm just doing a little highlight there. I mean, the fun part is just choosing which colours to use. I'm just going to go for a bit of beige there. Now you can see how quick and easy this technique is, because these Marvy pens, they just slide over the glossy cardstock really easily. And we'll just go for another solid colour just over this last surfboard. Okay, so you can see how quick that was. Now we're going to colour up the sand. Now with the sand colours, there's two colours here I like to use. Now this one's oyster grey and this one's cream yellow. Now depending on how sandy you want your sand to look, the cream yellow can sometimes look maybe a little bit too yellow. So I go over it with the cream yellow here first. And with all that detail, you can see how quick this is. You don't need to go over every single portion. And then with some of this oyster grey, if you just want to go over that, that can give more of a realistic look to the sand. And you only need to really highlight with the oyster colour. So go over that like that. Now we're going to do our water. And the watercolour I like to use is a blue grey. Now it's a fairly bright blue, but it gives a nice fresh look to it. So I'm just going to glide over that part. Now obviously with different photo stamps you'll have different areas that you want to highlight, different colours. The Marvy Le Plumes come in like 100 different colours, so there's always a marker that's going to suit your project. So there's our stamped image. All we need to do now is just trim that down and make that into a card. So here's my finished card here. I've made it a real sort of weathered seaside theme. So I've just mounted it onto some craft cardstock, and I've also used a little quote here from one of the Darkroom Door seaside stamp sets. To make it even more weathered, I've actually ripped the paper. Rather than cutting around the quote, I've just ripped around it and then just sponged some ink around that. And I've done the same with the edge of the card you can see here. To add a bit more texture, I've just wrapped a bit of twine around a couple of times and tied a knot at the front. And that's it. That means it's a finished card. Over here I've got some other examples using some different photo stamps and collage stamps. And you can see here, this is one of our photo stamps called the Pansies. And I've just used 3 different Marvy pen colours just to colour up all the flowers differently to give it a nice bright look. Here's another bright card using the Marvy Le Plume pens. This is a licorice all sorts stamp from our Sweet Treats collection, and I've just coloured it in using different colours to give that real yummy sweet flavour. So I hope this inspired you to get out your Marvy pens and give this technique a go. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next show.